everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design. Hey everyone, and welcome to this Transits episode. I am so excited to introduce to you my psychic tarot reader and dear friend, Liz Zamorski, who is going to pull cards for November. So Liz, over to you. Tell us what we need to be, or what's coming our way for November.
So there's this beautiful theme that's been coming through with a lot of readings I've been doing lately, where something really big is unfolding for all of us in December. So I'm going to talk about December just for a second, because that informs this reading for November. And I know it sounds kind of like a cheap shot saying like, oh, big things are happening in December, because big things always seem to happen in December. Some of us are falling apart. Some of us are falling together, but there's always this kind of crescendo at the end of the year. But this is not that way. This is a much more solid, grounded culmination of all of this work we've been doing. And I would say for the past 2 or 3 years, it's all coming together. So things may feel like they're flashing forward in December, but know that this is steady and that this has been coming for a long time. So cut to now in November, what I've been telling people and what came through the cards today as well is that this is a really good time for things to start shifting out. So all of this shadow, all of these little barriers, all of these last kind of things that have been holding us where we're at, they're going to start moving away. And this is the perfect time for it. Not only the time of year, but also what's going on astrologically. We have eclipse season. We're in Scorpio season, which does not pull any punches. It is not polite. It goes right into it. And so the cards that came out, there are many of them, but I'm going to highlight the message. It started with the 10 of Wands, which is really saying, are you willing to die on this mountain just because it took you so long to get here? And the answer should be a resounding no. That even if you've worked really hard for something for a long time and it's provided stability and it's given you a roof over your head and maybe put a floor under your feet, if it's no longer working for you, it's time to gather up the pieces that do work and move on, to start putting them together and forming them into something that's going to help you emerge from this cocoon, because it feels like we've been a little bit stuck these past couple months. 6 of Wands is coming out. That's victory. That's that parade through the city where everyone is shouting your name and reaching out, trying to grab a piece of you. So there's big victory that wants to come in, but it can't if we're stuck where we're at. The Lovers card, which was the theme of the year, that came out too. There's a lot of this 6 energy, which calls for us to rebalance. So if you're feeling like things are kind of becoming unbalanced, just know that it's calibrating you to a new equilibrium. There's Temperance and there's 2 aces, which means, again, let yourself be balanced, give yourself some rest, know that this is moving you forward to something good. And the Ace of Swords and the Ace of Wands are saying new ideas and new inspiration are on their way. But again, we can't bring in the new unless we've cleared room for it. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, give yourself some room, let things clear out, knowing that it's making a way for December to come in.
Oh my God. You are freaking me out right here. So just before we got on this call, as the listeners may or may not know, as I said on the last episode, Taylor is here with me, which is super, super exciting. And we've been planning everything for next year. And I just so resonate with that piece. Like December's going to be big. Like, oh my God, I can feel it. And then you talking about like, are you going to die on this mountain? I keep getting this card. Like I get the bridge, or I get the, the death card, or I get I keep getting this message, that exact same message. So I feel like, and, we all know that my energy kind of feels into the future very much. And I can feel all of that. Like it totally resonates with everything that's showing up in my life. Like, oh my God, I love it. So how can people work with you? What's going on for you for November, December? Are there all that amazing retreat? Is that happening next year again? Like, what do you want people to know about you at the moment?
Yes. So November, we have the advanced tarot course, which is actually already sold out. So if you missed that, it's going to be happening again early next year. So keep your eyes peeled. I have my amazing 12-month insight readings already starting to book up now. And that's where we go month by month for the next year, going through the energies, giving you a roadmap of where you can kind of look for red flags or where things are going to be feeling some relief. So 12-month insight readings are booking up. Definitely hit me up there on my website to book in your time.
And oh my God, I have to do that. I have to get in before people kick me out of my spot.
I know, because half of November is already booked and half of December is already gone. And this year it's really juicy because I'm including a bullet journal with it. So it's not only going to be a reflection with affirmations for you and journal prompts for every month, but it's also going to be in the style of a bullet journal. So there's going to be all kinds of extra fun pages that you can use as an adult coloring book, that you can use for gratitude rituals. There's going to be moon information in there. So it's just chock full of extras. Yeah.
Oh my God. I want mine right now. I need to I need to be like, oh, I'm on it.
Okay. Get on it.
Yeah.
So the 12-month insight readings are really big. And yes, we are going to have our retreat next summer. We haven't released the dates yet. That's going to be coming up within the next month, but mark your calendars for sometime in July to come to Sweden and expand, explore, and reconnect with yourselves in the land. So
oh my God. Oh my God. All the stories that I heard from that retreat, I was like so jealous that I wasn't there. So far out, people, keep your eyes open and do book in, because I feel like for me, this monthly check-in, it makes such a big difference. It's so grounding. And in many cases, it's very, I don't love the word validating, but it's very validating. It really helps me go, okay, yep, I can really trust me. Like, because I'm constantly not going on, the pre-made road, or where I, inverted commas, should be going. So it really supports me in that journey each month. So go check out all the links in the show notes to work with the incredible Liz Zamorski. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Have a great month.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Transits. We are going to be looking at November. We're going to be looking back at October. And, of course, I'm joined by the wonderful Jenni Crowther. Welcome, Jenni.
Hi, Emma. Hi, Transits team. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Super excited. All right. Well, let us get into it. Let's, what are we going to do? We're going to review October first?
Yeah, I mean, I might actually just give it like an agenda, if you like, the highlights, the bullet points of what we're going to cover in November, because it's quite a lot.
Love it.
So we're approaching the end of Q3. At the time of recording, we're in the last week of Q3. And so Q4, the last quarter of the human design year, begins on the 6th of November. We've got a huge emphasis on individual mutation. I mean, I know this has been going on all year with so much nodal activation in there, and it's getting amped up really in November. Mars went retrograde 2 days ago at time of recording, on October 30th. So that's relatively unusual. It doesn't do that often. We will have a change in the nodal theme at the end of the month. And Pluto's just finished up in gate 61 for good. So it'll be moving into gate 60 it's moved out of gate 61 and it's now in gate 60.
Wow, it's been there a while, right? On and off. Long time.
Yeah, on and off. Yes. 2 years. I feel like 2 years on and off in and out of 61.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that in Q4 also moves into 61 for its final pass.
Wow.
Out of 61. Sorry, we're all both blethering. I think both of us are slightly deranged today.
Yeah, just a little bit. So hang in there, listeners. We will get there.
I'm going to make some sense at some point.
Yeah, love it. Do it.
So I think we look back at October and it's almost like there's too many world affairs to talk about. From my perspective here in Britain, our government isn't really functioning. They're just swapping jobs, it seems. It's really hard to keep up with who's in what position. And I looked across the globe. Obviously, there's the uprising in Iran. There's stuff happening in Brazil. I mean, just everywhere I look, there is upheaval. There's basically crisis, structural chaos, difficulty, uncertainty, confusion, all of this that we, from a human design perspective, were expecting.
Yeah.
And I think we don't know how long this process will last until we get back to some kind of stability, maybe a year, a decade, 10 decades. Like, we don't know. But I think from a transit's perspective, my interpretation of what we're about to see in the course of towards the end of the year, over this last quarter, it's probably going to give us a bit of an indication of what to expect. So it almost felt like October was a bit like the calm before the storm, sort of astrologically speaking, like almost like a bit of downtime before it's go time.
Yeah. I love that.
And I think my observation of October was downtime.
Yeah.
Like we're still in that splenic process. We're in the last gate of the spleen now as we're recording. Not just the sun, but Mercury and Venus were also in all of the spleen gates. And I felt that I'm splenic anyway. So as a splenic projector, my immune health is literally everything to me. Like if my body isn't functioning really well, nothing works. My relationships don't work, my work doesn't work, nothing works. So for me, it's always a big time of the year. It's a big process. But I also got a lot of feedback from other people that they were undergoing this, what felt like a purging almost in terms of our health.
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed the same thing.
Well, it's interesting as we speak. Justin's not well. He's been unwell for the last couple of days, and I mean he's fine, but he's not well, and he's never unwell, being another splenic projector. And I kind of feel like October definitely hasn't felt like downtime for me, and I do have an undefined spleen. It's felt like it's been very what's the word, like I feel like I'm getting to a place where like I'm going to the next level. Like I'm turning up for this new version of myself. I'm turning up for the changes that are happening. I'm turning up for all of these things. And October's kind of felt like, yep, I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. So I've been feeling more of it's all good. It's certainly not like I don't want to be doing it, or I'm not doing something or I'm doing something that's out of alignment, but it's definitely felt like, the commitments that I've made to myself, to the business, to my kids. October's definitely been a month of just keep turning up. There has been definitely challenges, like I always say, like more high quality problems than drama or anything like that. And it has been very much this theme of, like leaning into what's hard, like leaning into potentially those fears or, that splenic energy, like just having that faith, like just being like, oh, it feels like the tail end. I've got this kind of energy. So that's October's been amazing. And, it's also just, and it feels like it's the very much it's been an energy of putting to bed the old, creating the new, and in that transition, being able to get super honest with, because we've been looking a lot towards next year, like really being like, well, I can't do everything, I can't be everything. So that it's been very transitory for me. It's been that whole, like, I have to, according to my strategy and authority, like complete almost. And there's this laying down of the new while I'm letting go of the old. So it's been a big month for me, October. It really has. And in all areas of my life, all areas.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by this hemispheric balance. We've obviously talked about it a lot, but I wonder, like, as we're going into autumn in the northern hemisphere and you're coming into spring in the southern hemisphere, if that's part of this dynamic balance of, we are winding down, you're ramping up, like this, the global humanity pulse, if you like. If that's,
it makes sense.
You're focused on emerging through your fears.
Yeah.
Whereas we're kind of settling down with them, going to bed with them, if you like.
Yeah. But again, it makes sense to me, because everything is, yin and yang, black and white, polarity. So it makes sense to me that would be the case, because otherwise it would, put the whole planet, out of balance. So
and what the moon is doing as well, like always pulling the water towards her.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I noticed, gate 57, which was my birthday week, I had digestive discomfort, let's just put it like that, for the whole week. And it really felt like a purging, like a clearing out. And then we've just had the channel 5027, so the channel of preservation, active for, I think it was 3 or 4 days, just in the week just gone. And again, my whole family felt like physically, like the stomach felt unwell. And I put it onto Instagram and I had other people come back and say, oh my God, yes, I'm also experiencing
exactly
that.
what's wrong with Just, like he's got a stomach thing going on.
Yeah, I think it's that, my observation is that it's that activation. That my interpretation, certainly in my body, like how my body gets rid of any toxicity that it can't deal with, and this is emotional as well as heavy metals or whatever, is that it goes through the gut. Like it's the waste disposal. So if my body's really clearing something out, then my digestion really suffers.
Yeah, right.
So that's one sort of theme. And then another theme in terms of what I noticed was the movement of Saturn into gate 13 for the last time in its turnaround. It seems like, gate 13 being the gate of the listener, the gate of the confidant, the secret keeper, if you like. And it seems like there's been some very deeply, maybe not consciously hidden. So maybe it wasn't that people were deliberately keeping these things secret, but there are some very profound, painful life experiences from my life, from my friends' lives, that are coming to light. It seems like the sharing has been as deep as I've ever seen it. A very, very close friend of mine told me something that I was like, how do I not know this about you? This is formative, fundamental. How are we only just now talking about it? And then I realized that Saturn was in gate 13, and so I think, certainly we're seeing it in the mastermind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's, if I'm attributing it to anything, it might be the influence of Saturn in 13. Let's really bring everything onto the table so that we can transform it.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely resonate with that. I think about so many of the conversations that I've been a part of recently, absolutely. And in my own personal life, and it's funny, it's even, we've had some really interesting times with one of my kids, and, this he also has the 13 in a very, very prominent place. So, and it's been very much about, about all of this process and a lot of these things coming to light. And so I definitely resonate with that.
And then this last week, just before we, because the sun's gone into gate 44 as we're at time of recording, but it's been in gate 28 the last week. And that also is quite, I mean, it's interesting to me that the week leading up to Halloween or All Hallows, Day of the Dead, is the 28th. And it's the fear of death, the fear of dying before you've figured out what makes life worth living.
Yeah.
And certainly I've seen that come up with, I have a friend who has the channel of struggle, and it's been a very dark week for her. I mean, I think it's been a dark period generally, but on the day that the sun moved into 28, she reached out to me like, I'm really struggling, really, like, I know I'm a struggler, but I'm really, really struggling. And I personally, it's not a prominent activation for me, but I felt drawn to watch a limited series that's all about death and dying and what happens when someone we love dies prematurely, and what makes life meaningful, the moments that make life meaningful. For the reason that the sun has been in gate 28, I've been very, very drawn to really kind of existential media.
Yeah.
That's often how I process, right? Like if it's not about my life, I still kind of get on the board with the theme.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I actually even feel like that's been a lot of, it's funny, I've pulled so many cards this week about, or not this week, but this entire month, like death, the bridge, all of these things that are about letting go of the old. And in turn, I've also been, a lot of cards that are creating the new. So, and this whole, I have the 28. So that is in my chart, but it's in an undefined center. And I definitely, I think that's a lot of what I was saying, sort of feeling about it, October, that there is this culmination. There's this, there's a real crossover happening in my life, whether it's my, the age that my kids are at, or where the business is at, or, where my health and fitness is at, or whatever it is. I just feel like that this has been a big theme, and it is, aligning to, that 28, like that greater meaning. Like, what is the greater meaning? So letting go of the things that definitely my ego is like, oh, I need to do that. I have to be that. I have to whatever, as opposed to really stepping in and going, well, what is the bigger mission? What is the bigger mission to align to? And so I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah, so it's been, I mean, my observation from this side of the planet is that it's been a bit of it just feels a bit messy, like a little bit, I felt kind of foggy, muddy, chaotic. Like I wrote the notes for this transit podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I just this morning got up and reviewed them, and I was like, talking crap, like what am I on about? I just like rewrote most of it because I felt like slightly like I don't know, like I can't feel the clarity. I think it's been, for me anyway, it's felt just kind of like a washing machine, not like in a really obvious way, but like a small internal one. So in terms of what's coming up, we've got a lot to cover for November. So
rightio, let's buckle in, because both of us, I think we need to do something about our attitude. We need to like bring out our energy. Like we need to bring it. We need to at least try. Nope, that's it. That's all I've got. So let's just do the best we can.
I don't think we do, Emma. We can be calm and
we can be whatever we need, whatever we want.
Whatever the universe
slightly morose. I love that.
Slightly morose. I think that's the vibe I'm getting from both of us.
I'm slightly delirious because I had my first call at 7 a.m. this morning. So mine's not morose. It's slightly delirious.
She's done, guys. I'll just have to. It's all right. I'll carry it. Okay.
It's all yours. So, go for it.
Cracking into November. Anyone that wants to go back to last November from 2021, whatever year that was in, episode 148 is what you're looking for, and we start talking about the Sun Earth from 10 minutes in. So that's a possibility for those of you that like to, rinse every bit of juice out of it. For those that are new, I'm imagining we have some new people to the Transit
We do
podcast.
indeed.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I just want to remind you where to get the support documents. We've got 2 support documents. They're on my website. That's jennicrowther.co.uk. Links in the show notes. And there are 2 Wheel of the Year support documents. So if you go to the podcast page on my website, you will find Wheel of the Year 1, Wheel of the Year 2, because I often refer to them, and they're visual references to help you visualize what we're talking about. It's the celestial sphere and the division of the celestial sphere from a human design perspective, which is different to the astrological perspective. It correlates, but it's different. So feel free to pause and go and look for those documents, because I will be referring to them. All right. So as we're recording, the sun is in gate 44. It's just gone into the last of the spleen gates, which means the earth is in gate 24, which is programming partner, and Pluto's in 61, as I clumsily mentioned earlier. So that means we've got a channel on for the whole planet. The gate 24 to the 61 connects the ajna in the head, in the individual circuitry, so channel of the awareness, the design of a thinker. So we might find ourselves under more pressure than usual. If this podcast goes out in the next couple of days and you're listening to this as it goes out, there's this gate of return and rationalizing, and this need to go back over something and figure it out and reassess and be like, hang on a minute, what actually is true? What actually is meaningful? So this energy to make more sense of things from a mental perspective. As I mentioned, we've got not just the sun, but actually Venus, and then tomorrow or the day after Mercury in gate 44. So that is a lot of splenic awareness of our patterns of the past that made us afraid, probably for our survival, but generally just afraid. So it's a really, really good time to be journaling on these fears and rewriting the narrative on them so that you can let them go. So yesterday on a call that Emma and I had together in the mastermind group, Emma, what I like to call love shouted at me. It's
I
like,
did.
she really
I definitely
shouted at me.
kicked your butt with lots of love.
Sometimes Emma shouts at you, but in a really loving way. And it was, I think, really all related to this energy of the 44. We together were calling out all my fears that I've accumulated through the way that I've behaved or past situations in relationship. These energies, like I was afraid that I couldn't commit, afraid that I couldn't actually love anyone properly. So understandably, Emma called me out on it.
I did.
But it's this is an illustration of the energy of the 44. It's like, I've behaved like this in the past. This is how my past relationships have gone. And I'm afraid that is my pattern for life. I'm afraid that I can't change it. I'm afraid that's just who I am. And actually, it's not true. We can always rewrite the narrative. So yesterday after the call, I wrote down a list of my fears, and then I rewrote them all from a resourceful perspective. So I can't commit was like, I can commit, I do commit, I'm always committing to stuff.
Yeah.
So it's that, as this podcast goes out, it's a really good time to be doing that work, that final kind of flush of some of our fundamental fears about relationship.
I love that. And it's so important, and if you don't know, one of the things is like, don't just go looking like, oh, what am I afraid of in relationships? Take a look at your challenging relationships. Anywhere that you feel challenged in a relationship, you're going to see your fears arise within that relationship. So yeah, powerful stuff. I love it.
Yeah. So that's where we're at time of recording. So if we get one of the Wheel of the Year documents out, we look at the Wheel of the Year 2, which is the one with all the hexagrams on it. You're looking towards the top right-hand section of that. And you'll see Halloween or Day of the Dead, All Saints Day, October 31st to the November 1st, which is where we are when we're recording. So that, you'll see just after that on the November the 6th, that marks the beginning of the yang half of the year. So there's a yin half of the year where the bottom line of every hexagram is a yin line. We're almost done with that. This is the last few days for that. And then we go into the yang process where every line from the 6th of November through to, when will it be? March. So Beltane on the other side of the year, will have a yang-based line. As to what that means, I haven't concluded yet. I just noticed it as a pattern. It aligns more with where Emma is in the world, because, spring, summer is this yang time of year. It's outgoing, it's outward. It's more of a yin time of the year. In the Northern Hemisphere, it's winter with turning inward. So I don't know how it balances out, but I just think for me, it was an interesting observation to see that these days or periods where we're told that the veil is thin, it correlates with this flip of basically the base hexagram line. So we're halfway really in terms of the yin yang, but in terms of quarters, we're 3/4 of the way through. So I wanted to look at because I think quarters can be quite mysterious in human design. I think we can be a bit like, well, what does that even really mean? So we're coming out of the quarter of duality, which is the third quarter. It's about relationships and how we are in relationships, and how what kinds of relationships we are drawing in to our lives. Quarter 4 is called the quarter of mutation. It begins with Sphinx gates, of course, the sun into gate 1 and the earth into gate 2, which I'll talk about a lot more in a second, because they're very, very prominent gates in November. But I was reading an article by Alcanan Diaz about Q4, and he reiterated a theme that I have been thinking about and talking about for probably 3 or 4 weeks now. Q4, the keynote, is purpose fulfilled through transformation. And Alok says that this quarter is really misunderstood because of our human idea about what is even available for transformation. As in, human dogma is very limited in terms of what can be changed and what can't be changed. So I'm going to quote, it's quite a long quote from him, but I think I'll then expand on it. So he says, Alcanan Diaz says, a dogma is nothing but a rational way of excusing and justifying human misery. And the human mind has mistaken individual convictions with all sorts of moral dogmas since the beginning of time. This is a cognitive trick with which the evolutionary program has kept the consciousness of human beings locked into their personal mental ghetto, because the mental habit is deeply conditioned and distorts their perception of the only thing that truly matters, which is the solidity of our loyalty to what we already are, which is what we've always been and what we can never stop being until we die. By logic, it seems clear that if there is anything that is consistent in the perception of any human being, it should be found in the perception that they have of themselves as the only inhabitant and passenger of their form. Yet we keep educating our children so that they learn to trust in us, and we keep making them believe that we know when we actually only believe. So that's a long quote. I'm going to break it apart.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I just listening to it, I'm like, wow, that's fundamentally, I feel like the work that I'm doing in the world, because I absolutely feel every word of that to be true, that ultimately the power does lie within us. And, as a parent, and I love that piece, like teaching our kids, like, I think that's the biggest challenge I have, like how much scope I can give my kids to really be themselves, to really experiment with being themselves and really learn their lessons and really dive into that. Because we are so far from that right now as a collective, but I love it. I love it. Break it down.
We are far from it, like in general, but I don't think it takes much to get to something very fundamental and true. So I had a conversation with someone a few weeks ago. We were working together on a retreat. We don't know each other very well. She has the channel of curiosity, the 1156. So she has this tendency to seek and to question and to be curious. And every time I was hanging out, just me and her, she would ask me question after question after question after question. Like, she's really just getting into her spiritual seeking. And, I've been spiritually seeking for a while. So she was kind of using me as a resource. But I was also working pretty hard and I was trying to rest. So when I was at home, I was trying to chill and not speak to anyone. And she was asking me and asking me and asking me. So I almost wanted to just cut the legs out from under her questioning to get to the root. So I said to her, I was like, look, humans have been asking these questions forever. Like, we've been seeking forever. Have we actually all agreed upon anything yet? Is there one thing that we have actually all agreed on to any question that anyone's ever asked? And I let her sit there for a minute and try and figure out if there was anything. And then I was like, do you want me to tell you what, like, if you look at every tradition, the Greek tradition of thinking, the Indian traditions of thinking, like, there is actually something that is agreed upon. But it's very, very minimal. I'm watching Emma's face. She's like, is there now?
I'm going through things like, yeah, there are some things we agree on. Oh, maybe not. Oh, maybe no. Not sure about that. That's what's going on in my head right now. We breathe. So, that's the only thing I come up with.
The knowing that everyone can know with a very simple inquiry is we can know that we exist.
Yeah.
I am is a true statement.
Yeah.
And the way you can test whether I am is a true statement is you ask internally, am I? And you can all do that now. Am I?
I am.
I am. I am, right? Everyone will have had the same answer. Am I? I am not does not work. There is no truth there. It's completely false. So that fundamental truth of I exist, I am, ego, or in Sanskrit, tattvamasi, I am that I am that.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something we can know and we can all agree upon, and we have always been able to agree upon, and it's the foundation that all spiritual teachings sit on, because it's true and it's fundamentally verifiable by just asking yourself that question.
Yeah.
So the challenge as a human cognition that we get is when we start to add anything to that statement or question. So if we add, who am I? What am I? How am I? Why am I? Where am I? When am I? Is where we start to perhaps get into a little bit more nuance. I think we can still answer where am I and when am I? If you ask yourself, where am I?
Byron Bay, here in my office, sitting on my chair.
Here. Where am I? I'm here.
Yeah.
When are you?
Now.
Right now. So I am here and now is a true statement. When you start to ask who or what am I, it starts to expand the question to, I think we need a hypothesis, as in there is in the beginning there was the Word and the Word was God, right? Is one of I think it's the first words of the King James Bible or whatever. This teaching of I am, when you really start to ask, who am I or what am I, you start to feel that resonance as divine consciousness. It's something that's actually hard to explain or describe in words, but when you start to add who or what to the question, am I, then you start to feel the expansiveness of the truth of what you are.
I love that. And you know what's really interesting about that is that when you ask those questions, my answer in my head was me. And there is this thing about being me that I've tried to articulate so many times, but I can't articulate it. And it's not me as in, the way I look, what I do, any of that. It is absolutely a feeling. And I will say, like, my favorite feeling is being in me. There's just this feeling, and it's exactly what you just kind of touched on, is that it's a feeling of expansion that comes from my heart space. And it just like, I know I'm in it because my face hurts because I'm smiling.
Yeah. It makes you, agreed. It makes me smile when I sit with that essence of myself.
Yeah.
And it's joyful.
Yeah.
And it's loving and it's open and it's accepting. And all these words don't do it justice because it's a thing without words.
Yeah.
So if if you think about how much energy humans expand on trying to answer these questions without actually sitting in the one thing that they can know for sure, which is that they are the essence of who they are. If everyone was really firmly anchored in that, in the actual truth that they can know for themselves, a lot of the questioning falls away. Now, it's not to say that there's no value in answering any other questions or asking any other questions and seeking, but I will also say it's helpful for people listening to know who is talking right now. So my design, when you look at my head and ajna, I have a completely open ajna and gate 61.1 unconsciously defined in the head center. So I am actually here to ask the only fundamental question of truth. And I am here not to conclude any further than that. So
I love that.
You might be designed, like, I'm really satisfied with that answer. I'm like, I am. That's excellent. I'm done. Whereas for someone with a defined head and ajna, they might be like, that is not enough for me. I need more. And that's fine. But I'm just saying what Alakanand Diaz is saying in that quote is, and I'll just go back to it so that I remind us of what he said. The only thing that truly matters is our solidity of the loyalty to what we already are. You know, we're the passenger in the form, and I'm the only inhabitant of the passenger. I'm in here. That's what I am. So from that knowable truth, we don't really need to have a definitive answer on anything else. Everything above and beyond that is a belief.
100%.
That is a truth that we can know. Anything above and beyond that is a belief. And yet, most knowledge is presented in the world, and especially to children who are super curious about the world, as truth rather than belief. So the other conversation that I had was, I had some friends saying, talking about religion, you know, they've got a young child who's starting to ask, probably going to start to ask questions about the big questions. And they were like, we need to decide what we believe so we can tell them what's true. And I was like, that statement doesn't make any sense.
No.
You've just said you need to decide what you believe so you can tell them what's true. Those two things are not the same thing. What you believe and what is true are different.
Oh my God. It's so true. And it's definitely something that as a parent for myself, and growing up, I was so aware that I didn't, believe what I was told. But yet when I had kids, I was also aware that I didn't have a definitive answer. And I know that it's definitely been a journey for us, and it's a massive conversation in our family, especially when they were little. And whenever we talk about this subject, it always ends with myself or Justin saying, but that's what I believe. You're free to believe whatever you want. And I just, you're bang on. It's like, and if we reflect on that quote, like, who cares? We don't need to know. It doesn't matter. It absolutely 100% doesn't matter. Nothing matters. That's the point.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're here. I'm here. I'm now. Ta-da. End of story.
Ta-da. I love it.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what he's saying is, I think, alluding to the essence of transformation, which is from the perspective, like, we don't know what consciousness is definitively. The science calls it the hard problem of consciousness. But if I am anything, I must be consciousness. Like, my understanding of what consciousness is it's the ability to know. And what I am, as a statement is doing, is saying, I know I am. So it's also where our species name comes from, Homo sapiens sapiens, man who knows and knows that he knows. So we know the essence of ourselves. We don't need to be definitive about anything over and above that, because it's not really important. And we can play with the mind and we can play with the Maya. Why not? It's entertaining for sure, but it's as entertaining as Netflix or whatever. It's like, it doesn't need to be any more entertaining than that. Like, it doesn't need to be serious and real and existential, you know, because we know the answer to the existential question.
Yeah. And, you know, looking at it or experiencing it through that frame, like, it just makes us more aware that we're creating it. Like, we're creating it. Exactly. Whatever we're experiencing, we are creating it.
It is being created in the field of consciousness. We are, it seems, apparently co-creating that. Maybe we're not the only force that's creating it. Maybe there are other co-creative forces. But his point being, if you understand that, then you understand what can be transformed and how to transform it through your consciousness. So looking at the next quarter through that lens, we have a clearer idea of what is possible, because anything can be transformed when you start at that level. Oh
my God. My sacral is so excited right now. That's exciting. I don't even want to transform anything. I'm just excited. The potential. No. That's exciting.
You're just sitting in the field of potentiality being like, yep.
Oh my God. But it's the thing, right? Like, we know this. We know this. It's such a fundamental.
All the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I don't think it's just it is forgetting. However, there's also part of it that we're just so willing to give up the faith, the knowing. We're so willing to give it up for someone else's belief or someone else's, opinion, or I think that's the piece for me. Like, we are ultimately so incredibly powerful. And that, to me, is also what it means to give our power away, that we, on some level, we give up that knowing, that thing that is like you say, the only thing that is intrinsically us, that we deeply know. We're so quick to give it away. We are so quick to look for external validation, or to say someone else is right and we are wrong, or we are right and they are wrong. But far out, just to sit in that potentiality. Oh my God, that's exciting. That's magic, cool. Right? That's what we've been led to believe is magic, but in fact is quantum, it's spirit, it's source.
Just seems fairly obvious to me when I sit there. But of course I get distracted by other stuff all the time. So let's get into the distractions, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so quarter four, the first half of Q4, which is what this podcast covers, is going to have, after we get through the G center gates, we have sacral gates. We've got 14, we've got 34, we've got 9, we've got 5. So there's a fair amount of sacral activation after a whole world of spleen. So basically, we're going to have the energy to empower ourselves, to pursue our own direction, to focus on the next step, to find our rhythm. So it's a fairly energized bit of the quarter. We start on November the 6th with the Sun in Gate 1 and the Earth in Gate 2, but they are not the only activations in those gates. We also have the North Node and Uranus in Gate 2 with the Earth. We've got the Sun, the South Node, and Venus in Gate 1. And then the next day on the 7th, Venus moves out of Gate 1 and Mercury moves into it. So the Sun and the Earth are like parents of like a family of celestial activations in 1 and 2. We've also got, if you look at the slightly wider picture for this first week of Q4, from the 6th of November onward, we've also got Pluto in Gate 61 in the head, Venus in Gate 43 in the ajna, Mars retrograde in Gate 12 in the throat. All of that is individual circuitry, which is all about knowing or not knowing. More often than not, with the knowing circuit, we don't know. We're like, I don't know. I can't access my knowing. I feel like I used to know, but I don't know right now. And then all of a sudden we have this, I know. And then the next day we're like, hang on a minute, did I know that? So it's that kind of energy. It's this knowing pulse that comes and goes. So the point is not to get worried if you don't know, because you will know, because there's a lot of activation in there.
Yeah.
Pluto, what's Pluto doing? It's bringing in the truth. It's bringing in the like it or not truth. Possibly inconvenient truths. Often they are. but they're unavoidable because it's Pluto and it's doing it for the whole, whole theme is being governed by the great Pluto in the sky. In Steve Rhodes' book, The Prophecy of Rahu, he calls Pluto grandmother, actually, or Durga, who is this powerful feminine protectress. He describes it as the earth rising up and claiming the truth. So pretty heavy vibes from Pluto over there.
Wow.
We've got Venus which is values and morality in gate 43. So there might be some very personal or insightful breakthroughs in regards to what is true and beautiful for you personally. We have the Earth, Uranus, and the North Node in gate 2, which is this receptivity to a new direction. It's Uranus as well, so it's unusual probably, or brand new. And the North Node is about where we're going. So all of that in gate 2. Sun, Mercury, South Node in gate 1, which is South Node is kind of leaving behind, or where we've come from. Mercury is the communication of that, and the Sun is highlighting it. So they're highlighting personal creativity or the leaving behind of it. So all of that in a sentence, the unavoidable truth about our values and morality brings breakthroughs, receptivity to a transformative new direction, and moving away from the centering of the creative voice in the narrative as the receptive voice becomes louder and more influential, or in an even more nutshell, I feel like that's less output equals more input. I feel like it's taking away this creative drive and opening us up to a deeper receptivity, a much deeper receptivity. If you think about like one kind of losing its focus, and 2 becoming much more the focus, this deep rooting so that we can receive. That's kind of what it feels like to me, that whole scenario.
Yeah, wow. I love that. And I feel like that's actually a lot of what really is going on in the world, like the bigger themes, like we are starting to, evolve to be more in that receivership, less creative, less masculine, less do, more, and it's interesting, like even as receivership is something that's been, I don't know, like I just keep seeing it everywhere, having that conversation. So I feel like that definitely resonates for me because I can feel that energy coming.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? When you're so tapped into the energy, when I'm speaking, it's almost like I'm stating the obvious. It's almost like, yeah, and Jenny, that's obvious. But it maybe isn't obvious. I'm just putting language to something that I think some people might be really struggling with. They might still be like, I need to find my creative voice. I need to output into the world. And I'm saying the energy probably isn't there for that. So it's no point trying to force it.
No. And I love it as well, like, because it gives people that permission slip to, find or trust the process of receiving. Because again, I feel like we have been doing a lot of doing, and we've been, on a busy road. And this is that time where maybe this mutation and transformation can come more from, like you said, do less, receive more. What did you say? Less
output,
input.
more input.
Yeah, that one.
So not that America is the be all and end all, but its politics do have an impact globally. And their midterm elections are on the 8th of November, when basically there's just like everything lined up in gates 1 and 2. Plus, on the day of the midterm elections, there's a full moon and lunar eclipse in gate 2. So a huge, huge amount of focus on gate 2 for that day. Peter Schreiber, who does the Jovian Archive transits, his interpretation, I really love listening to them, because he's a self-confessed pessimist and I'm a self-confessed optimist. So I feel like I found a real balance there. But his interpretation of that is a sudden, strong change of direction, which could go either way, It could be but he basically said, if the status quo remains unchallenged, I would be very surprised when there's that much energy and focus on gate 2. So
interesting.
It'll be interesting.
Let's see how that plays out.
How that plays out.
I want to share something really amazing with you. And it's actually one of our new Millions of Millionaires sponsors. So to introduce this body graph chart software that we've been using that's been mind-blowing. So I want to welcome the amazing Taylor Jason, who is my incredible operations manager. Welcome along, Taylor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is actually something that we implemented when?
April.
Yeah.
And this year.
We were just trialing it out because they'd reached out to us in regards to sponsoring the podcast or something like that, wasn't it? And so it kind of wasn't even on our radar. And we tried it out and we had such low expectations. And then what happened?
Well, I remember sending you a message going, Emma, why are we not using this? Because I was mind blown. We get a lot of requests for stuff like that. And, there's new softwares all the time. And I clicked on it, like you said, with very low expectations. And I started looking through what they can do. And I got so excited. The MG in me was like, oh my God, we have to use this. And I saw the potential of it. And it has delivered more than expected. It's really awesome.
Amazing. Now, before we get into the actual numbers, because I know numbers with Taylor is a thing in our business. She loves to share all the numbers. Let's just tell the listeners exactly who it's for and what it is.
Yeah, so it's a great tool for anyone who uses human design in their business. So if you're a human design reader, a human design coach, or just someone who uses human design in your business, if you incorporate it into whatever you do, it's a way for you to embed an actual human design chart tool into your website. So, if you want someone to get their human design chart, you probably send them to an outside platform somewhere, go to this website, put in your details and get your chart, whatever that platform might be. There's a couple big ones. And what's cool about this is that it allows you to put that tool on your own website and it's yours. So when someone comes and, puts their information into your website, they get their chart, and then you can hook it up to your email list, to your newsletter. You can have it linked to your own content. You can customize the reports afterwards that they get, so it's your own descriptions of what, this type is or this profile. So that's kind of what it is.
Oh my God, I love it. And it's so cool because I actually remember when Jenna Zoe, because it must be the same software that Jenna Zoe used and before anyone else. Yeah, right. And I was always like, wow, her chart looks so beautiful and it's on her website. That's so cool. So yeah, when we started using it, I was like, this is beautiful. I'm really excited that we can do it. But let's talk hard numbers. Like we have had some serious success with this, just adding this to our business. So tell everyone a little bit about the growth that we've experienced through using this.
Yeah. So since implementing it into our website in April, there have been over 4,000 people that have downloaded their chart through the website. And that's unique. That's not, someone who does it twice, because a lot of people, they'll go back because they won't download the PDF or something, or they lost it or misplaced it. That's unique. Chart downloads. So it's even more for people doing it twice. And it's been really amazing. It's more than tripled the size of the email list. And, you can set up, sequences afterwards for people to, give them more information and keep everything in-house.
Yeah. And because one of the really big things for us is obviously human design made simple. So it gives us the opportunity to give our way of teaching human design directly to the people who want it. And I love that. I love that every single person that wants to get their chart, that downloads it, we can then support them on their journey straight away, which is, of course, what you set up, because you're amazing, to make sure that not only do they get their chart, but they also get this support, free content support that helps them as they're new to human design and on their journey. So beautiful. So how do people access this? What's it called? And I know that there's a benefit for listeners of the podcast.
Yes. So you can go to the link in the show notes, or you can go to bodygraphchart.com. And they have been kind enough to give the listeners of the Human Design Podcast a 50% off discount for 12 months, which is huge because it's already inexpensive to begin with. And then the 50% discount is going to put it at $25 a month. That's in US dollars. So wherever you are in the world, it'll be, a little bit different, but 50% off for 12 months. And the code is Human Design Podcast. And we'll put that in the show notes too for everyone. And one of the other things I want to say that's really cool about this chart tool is that it's 100% customizable, and it actually gives Chiron and the 4 arrows, which is what a lot of chart tools don't do that. So that's one thing that a lot of people are drawn to when they go to get our chart from our website is, oh, I can get the arrows because of it, or my Chiron gates.
I love that. It's so cool. So check out the show notes, people. Get on it, because really it is such a powerful and, as Taylor says, inexpensive tool. Like, it paid for itself in the first 2 days, I seem to remember, or first day, I seem to remember. So it's so valuable, and it gives you the opportunity to really build your brand and your communication with your clients. So thank you. Go check it out.
And it's also, so if you haven't guessed, like the whole theme really for November continues what we've been exploring this year already, which is this theme of individual mutation. In terms of global channels, which is when there is a channel defined by the transits, so everyone is getting it. In October, there were 2. We had heart center activation. So we had almost a week, about 6 days, of the 5125, the channel of initiation, which connects the heart to the G center. And then we also had the following week, we had money line with the 4521, which connects the heart to the throat. So this sense of just a more awareness, more understanding, more feeling of self-worth and value, and perhaps more of an emphasis on the spiritual, followed by an emphasis on the material. And certainly around that time, I was playing around with spiritual versus material in terms of what I'm ambitious for. We had a conversation about it on Mastermind. So that was all around that time. So they were the conditioning influences really in October. In November, there's quite a lot of conditioning influence, as in global channels that are on that are homogenizing, if you like.
Yeah.
So we're starting the month now, as we're recording, as I mentioned, with Earth in 24, Pluto in 61. So that's the channel from the head to the ajna down the center, the channel of the thinker, awareness. From the 11th to the 16th of November, we get the channel of structuring, genus to freak, so the 2343 that connects the ajna to the throat in the same circuitry. And we get that. That's a seasonal activation. We get that every year at this time. So that's just after the midterm elections, a few days after. So there'll be a lot of opinion, I would imagine, a lot of chat about what people are. There's a lot of energy for people's thoughts about what's just happened to be broadcast into the world. And then continuing on that channel, and it's helpful, if you're looking at a body graph, if you don't have the body graph memorized, looking at this central channel. So 6124 at the top, 4323 between the ajna and the throat. Coming down through that channel, we have Venus, Mercury, and the Sun that basically play tag in gate 14. Uranus is in 2. The North Node is in 2. So the channel of the beat, this channel that goes from the sacral to the G, is going to be activated from the 12th to the 21st of November. So 10 days of that channel. That is giving the possible, again, it's fueling this sudden change of direction that we've been talking about, it individual direction. We've also then, at the second part of that transit, while the 14.2 is on, from the 17th to the 21st, so the last few days of that, the Earth is going to be in gate 1, making a channel with gate 8. Sorry, and that'll be the Earth in gate 8 with the node in gate 1. So we're going to have channel of inspiration on. So that whole bottom section will be on for everyone. So what that will do, potentially, if there's been an internal shift, it's likely that will then bring it into the world, right? It's like suddenly you'll be able to talk about it and share it with others. So I would just say, like, it's not a guarantee, it's a pulse, and it's individually mutative. So we don't know if it's going to affect us personally or not. But don't be surprised if someone in your life in November just suddenly goes, hey, I've always said I wanted this and I'm working towards it. I actually don't. I'm changing my mind. I'm going over here now. It could be a pretty sudden and surprising change of direction.
Wow. I'm definitely sitting here reflecting on, well, actually, I'm not reflecting. I'm like, I wonder what that would be. Where? I'm trying to get ahead of the game. Not possible.
Well, it's curious, right? We're just like, well, we hold space so that if and when someone does say that, we're like, well, wonderful.
Yeah,
good
awesome.
For you. Not like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. And I think also, I feel like when you were speaking, I feel like it's almost although it's different channels, gates, I feel like it's also this preparation for this governing individual energy of the new paradigm, like
Yes.
we're having this experience, we're getting the hang of starting to put ourselves first, to understand that, maybe this whole tribal thing, if we need to change others, isn't working, and we have to look inward to create change inside, ourselves internally first, then create the change externally. So for me, that's what it sounds like. It's this big opportunity that we're being given just to really, classic line 3, just experiment, just feel what it's like, and really understand that this mutation, transformation, it starts within and then it ripples out.
Yeah, and it's empowerment circuitry. It's like, it's not selfish. It's your empowerment's empowering for everyone.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more wonderful to see in the world, someone who's completely in their empowerment. It's
100%,
gorgeous.
100%.
Following that, we then get the 3420 in its seasonal activation.
Wow.
So from the 22nd to the 27th of November, immediately after this activation of the 14-2 and the 1-8, we get the 3420. So that's this pure man-gen activation. So there's quite a lot going on. Right at the end of November, after the nodes will change, which means the South Node is in gate 44. It's going to make a channel with Mercury, then with Venus in gate 26. So there's kind of this, after all that process of gradual getting used to your new self, if that's happening for you, there's a real sense of being able to transmit that, the 4426, this energy of convincing other people why it's a good idea, getting what you want, basically.
I love it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of individual activation going on in November. And the only week in November where there isn't a global homogenizing channel is that midterm elections week, where there's so much activity in 1 and 2 that it's almost doing that job,
Wow, that's so crazy, isn't it? And so for me also, one of the big things I think is so important is, like, November is a time that if there's a change or a transformation or something that you've been working towards, and perhaps you've, let fear stop you, or you've been telling yourself stories, whatever, like, please allow this energy to carry you. Like, this is the time. This really is that time for you to begin to develop that trust in yourself and the change that you want to create, and that it's here to, really, really serve not just yourself, but the greater good.
Yeah. And then there's some interesting, there's a Mars retrograde. So it's not that usual. Mars is usually a forward moving planet. So it only goes retrograde once every couple of years. And it went retrograde a couple of days ago on the 30th. And it's going to be in throat gates, all retrograde in throat gates. So the planet of action in the center of action is lending some fairly active energy. Honestly, I can't call it. Like, I can't quite work out. I get a feeling in me, and maybe this is just a personal knowing, that it's good for me, but I'm not sure if that translates collectively. Sometimes my 57 just speaks for me, Yeah. So my sense is that this retrograde isn't going to be like bad news. I feel like it's going to be empowering. That's what I actually feel. My personal feeling is that this is an empowerment energy, a real stand up for yourself kind of energy, which is quite unusual for me because I'm usually a pussy.
But I love that. Word, I think that whole, I don't know, what did you use? What word did you use? I missed
Let's pretend I didn't say anything.
Okay, cool. Because I just was removing phlegm from my throat, so I missed it. Yeah, I love that. I think that this is, and I think also when I think of Mars, like I do think of that energy of kind of the lesson, that repetitive lesson, what is it helping me to learn, or to and in retrograde to go over, go over.
Yeah. So it's starting in gate 12, which is where it is now. So it's been in gate 12 since the 9th of October, but it's just stationed retrograde there in line 4. And it will stay retrograde in 12 until the 19th of November. Its retrograde will then take it back into gate 45, 35, and 16, where it will eventually station direct on the 13th of January. So it's quite a long retrograde.
That is long.
Yeah. I was looking at, I kind of like this Steve Rhodes book, the Prophecy of Ra Uru, because there's something about his terms, his phraseology that I can't find entertaining. So he describes Mars. He says this: the best way to understand Mars is to imagine a 12-year-old child. Mars is full of piss and vinegar. It can also be delightfully innocent, superbly enthusiastic, but it can also be cruel as hell. So this understanding of the immaturity of Mars, like I think that's quite helpful. That 12-year-old child, like, they can be unbelievable. I mean, Emma's nodding along like, yes, my 12-year-old child.
Yeah.
Although I don't think he's 12 yet, but that kind of, they're so sharp.
Oh my goodness. And boundaries.
You know?
Oh my God. Yeah. The testing of the boundaries.
So this is, according to Steve Rhodes, this Mars energy. I want to just bring anyone that isn't familiar with 12 as an energy. I'll quote from the definitive book of HD. 12 is described: the articulate, mutative, moody voice of the individual is restrained by gate 12 by natural caution. This caution keeps us silent until our mood tells us that we really do have something to say, as well as a unique, transformative way of saying it. Tone of voice speaks louder than choice of words and has the greatest impact as a stranger of consequence. So I have 12 in my design moon. Honestly, if you are social with me, I hardly ever speak. I'm pretty quiet. I'm not the one that's the loud voice in a group of people at all because of this social caution. But I will also say that my mum has this gate in her design Uranus, and she never shuts up. So I don't really know what's going on there. But my observation of the energy of 12 is it is social or antisocial, depending on its mood.
Yeah.
And we've got Mars going retrograde through this gate. So I think it's an understanding of not self is going to be the key to this.
Yeah.
If you have a really clear understanding of your not self tendencies, your not self cocktail, as I like to call it, because it's not just one bit of the chart that goes not self, it's all of it. And so being my kind of advice or guidance on how to handle an immature retrograde in a gate that speaks moodily and can be quite cruel is just be aware of your not self theme. So if you're open throat, are you trying to attract attention? Or if you open will, are you trying to prove yourself? Or like be aware of these not self themes so that you're actually able to hold your tongue if you're not in the mood to speak, or if you have said something that you regret, do you know how to make reparations with that person? Are you willing to make reparations? I think also we'll have, because of the lighter or more exuberant side of this, pay attention to the poetry of your words or the transformative potential of your words. I don't know, maybe people will suddenly feel inspired to start writing lyrics or poetry or, it's that kind of energy as well.
And I was thinking exactly that. Like, let's also talk about the potential, the higher potential. And I think the other piece is, so many people are talking about finding their voice. This might be a time that, you feel that there is something for you to respond to, that your voice is there for you, that you can trust it. And from a place of, because mood is all about the feeling, right? It's that it's all about feeling. So just trusting yourself to speak from, feeling as opposed to from the mind. And I mean, that in itself is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, what you were saying earlier about smiling, like when you sit in that presence and smile, I was listening to Richard Rudd last night, and he was guiding a little meditation, just putting hands on the heart and just connecting in, not even really doing anything, but just the physical act of hands on the heart. And I was just lying there with my hands on my heart, and then I was just realized that I was grinning from ear to ear. And then when I speak from that mood of just being so content in my own being, that my tone of voice is going to carry a frequency that is lovely. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be lovely to hear. You know? So it's not necessarily about what you say. It's really what you say. It's the way that you say it, as the old lyrics go.
Yeah. I love that.
I might just leave my hands on my heart for the rest of this podcast so you can all feel it.
I love it.
It then goes into 45. So after it's finished in 12, it'll go back into 45. Let me check the date. What did I say? When did it move? 19th. So it'll move on the 20th of November. So Mars in the gate of the gathering together. This is the exit point of the whole tribal circuit into the world. So it's probably, by contrast, one of the most social throat gates. You know, if you think of 12 as a fairly cautious gate, 45 is pretty gregarious, generous with its time, its resources, its attitude, is my observation of people with this energy, giving people the benefit of the doubt. In terms of its the active potential of Mars, last time Mars was in gate 45 was in late September and early October. And we talked about this privately, Emma. Like, I had a sudden urge to take action on gathering people together. And I contacted you about it. I was like, there's something going on. Is this enough of an invitation? Help me out, mate. Yeah. Because I just had this urge, this active urge to gather people together, which is when I launched a little retreat that I'm running in January, because I was like, this is really strong energy. I need to do this.
Yeah.
So that, that we're going to get the retrograde into that. So you might also be noticing this urge to take action in that area. I mean, it's a good time of year for it because it's kind of party season, lead up to Christmas. I guess it's Thanksgiving in America. So it is that kind of gathering together of people energy. I will give the usual strategy and authority caution on that, because I was like, really like, I can't work out if this is a real invitation or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it was.
It was. I think I'll just share the rest of the story because I think it's just entertaining. So I'd been looking a lot at the Gene Keys Dream Arc Codex, which is all this, like, the animals that are related to the Gene Keys, and the transits, of course, basically what I've been looking at. And I could feel this like potential invitation within me. And then but I couldn't work out what to do about it. So I said to the universe, show me what you want me to do. The next day, my van was infested with ants, like completely covered in ants. They were in everything, which was obviously a nightmare. So I spent about 4 hours cleaning the ants off my van. And then I was like, hang on a minute. What is ant what gate does ant relate to in the codex? I looked, it was gate 45. And then I was like, where is 45 in the transits? Oh, look, Mars is activating it. I am in Jenni's world, Jenni's weird and wonderful world. I'm being asked to take action about gathering people together. That is exactly the question I asked yesterday.
Yeah.
And then I messaged Emma and I was like, I think the universe has just infested my van with ants to invite me to launch a retreat. What do you think?
Oh my God. Absolutely. I love it. And because I know for me as well, like, so many, the more that we listen to our strategy and authority and we respond and we act on it, whether it's our intuition, whether it's, the invitations, like, they just become subtler and subtler and subtler. That's what I found. Yeah. So it just seemed like, duh. And I feel like there were other little things. Maybe I was just making that up, but I just felt there was quite a number of those, like, just confirming. So I love that. It was funny.
Yeah. It was funny, and it was really interesting. So then I did all the prep. I booked a venue and blah, 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 got all the stuff ready. And then all of a sudden one day I came in from the retreat that I was working on, and I just suddenly was like, I have to send the email to my newsletter right now. And I did it. And then I was like, what just happened? And I looked at the position of the moon, and I was sitting looking at the moon on the balcony, and it had just that within that hour gone into gate 41, which is the start codon, which is the do it right now, begin something.
I
and
love it.
the retreat will coincide with the sun in gate 41. So there was this lineup of all of these, like, if you're really attuned to the way that the body just responds to life, you figure that it's actually just, you can retrospectively be like, why did I just, what's going on? But you actually don't need to know. You can just trust
Exactly.
that your impulses are correct.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it. It's so good.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a slight diversion, but that is what Mars in 45 did for me. So just paying attention to that kind of energy. We'll cover the second part of the Mars retrograde next month because it's, like I say, it's a long one. So nodes, this is quite a big news. We've had the nodes in 1 and 2 since July. And so on the 27th of November, towards the end of the month, the South Node is going to move into gate 44 and the North Node into 24, which is where we are now in the Sun-Earth pairing. It's a relatively short nodal theme. Sometimes they last for months and months. This is just 2 months. So it's 6th of February, they're going to change again. So for pattern spotting geeks, 44 is in the spleen and it's part of the tribal circuit. Now, the nodal process goes, if you're looking at the wheel of the year, clockwise, whereas the sun and everything else pretty much goes counterclockwise. So the nodal theme is moving in a different direction to the Sun-Earth process. So if you're looking at gate 44, which is where the South Node's about to go into, you will see that that's the last gate in the spleen process. So because it moves backwards, it's the South Node for the next 2 years is going to go through all the spleen gates.
Yeah, wow.
So this process that we've just been talking about moving through your fears,
the
South Node going through all the spleen gates from now until December 2024 is further foundation for us to move through our fears.
But I love that. Oh my God, I feel like that's so important because, even that it's going backwards, to go back over the fears that, let's be honest, since 2020, so many people have become conscious of what the fears that lie within them. And I feel like that's really, really important, that it's like we're revisiting it, like for all of those that stuck their head in the sand or looked at something else that felt easier. This is an opportunity just for you to revisit, revisit, let go, revisit, heal, revisit, recondition, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. It feels like cleaning out energy, decluttering.
Mm. Oh, for sure. Like you will probably find yourself over the next 2 years going through every cupboard, every bit of the attic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a society that's built on fear, most of it, at this background field, this consciousness field of fear, it is going to rise into our awareness, and one by one, we are going to be seeing them for the illusion that they are. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is so exciting.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Let's quote Richard Rudd: fear has only one objective, to create more fear.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just be aware about the seductive quality of fear. The frequency is probably going to be pretty palpable. We're going to be quite aware of it, but let's just, as a transit team, like, I feel like I'm inviting us all to put our hands into the middle of a circle like they do before, like, I don't know, baseball games or something.
Love it. I mean,
let's not be seduced by the fear in the next couple of years. Just, it's so seductive.
Yeah.
It wants our attention so much.
Yeah.
Can we just not?
Oh my God, it just instantly reminds me of that book by oh gosh, what's the guy's name? But it's the Devil book by what is it, like In Conversation with the Devil, or Letting Go of the Devil, or something, the Devil, by
I think
Napoleon
it's Conversations.
Hill. Yeah. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant because it's kind of like Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, but it directly deals with, he calls it the devil, right? But it's really the ego and it's fear itself. So yeah, maybe it's a good time to actually get some backup and see how fear itself, because this is what he does, is he, in this conversation with, inverted commas, the devil, he lays out all the tricks of the devil, of the ego, and really how fear works, how, the powers that be manipulate and control, how our own ego manipulates and controls. It's really powerful. It's a great book.
Okay, well, I'm finally going to have to read this because you've recommended it to me on a number of occasions, and Jenna read it, and then she recommended it to me, and I still haven't read it. So, okay, fine, I'll read it.
Do it.
Do it. Okay, so nodal shift, 4424. I've just talked about it, the fears of what happened to me in the past being the way that my future is, and how limiting that is, and how it prevents me from actually being open to receiving love in this case. Which is why Emma was shouting at me about yesterday. We love you, really aggressively.
Well, I wouldn't say aggressive. I'd say firm. Firmly.
She was firm. It was a great moment. I wish you could all have been there. But what we are looking at then with this, the South Node in 44 and then the North Node in 24, is this. The keynote for 44 is, hang on, I'm sure I can remember this. The success of any interaction is based on an absence of preconditions. I'm pretty sure that's the keynote. So in order to go into any new situation, we have to let go of all the stuff that happened to us in the past, because otherwise we're bringing all these preconditions in. We're expecting people to behave in a certain way that they may not be wanting to behave. But as we know, you see what you're looking for.
Exactly.
So you've got to change what you're looking for. So this gate teaches us that we can go into experiences clear and fresh. We do not need to be burdened by the past experiences that we've gone through, because history doesn't always repeat itself, especially not now with all this mutative energy around.
Yeah.
So South Node in 44, North Node in 24, for 2 months. 24 is the gate of realizing. Again, we've talked about it already on this podcast, the connection to the 61 with Pluto, this energy of going back over something mentally to figure it out, to return to it, and to maybe finally make a new narrative about it. So that's what the nodes will do over the course of the next 2 months.
I love it. Buckle in.
And finally, Pluto. So midway through November, Pluto is going to go back into 60. It's done with gate 61. And for 60, if you look at the wheel of the year, look to the top left-hand side, is the final gate of the it's the end of a process, because the next gate is 41, which is the start codon, which I just mentioned in relation to the moon. And so Pluto now has a couple of years, 3 years, January 2025 in gate 61. It will have a mini break in April, May 2024. We can talk about that then if we're still going. But the point being, we're almost there. Pluto's almost done with the old cycle. We are about to get into a new cycle in 2025. I know that Human Design talks 2027, but from a Pluto perspective, the newness comes then. So gate 60, let us remind ourselves what this is about. I think we've talked about it several times on the podcast, but it bears repeating because it's still happening. It's limitation, the truth of unavoidable limitations with short pulses of limitation that mutate the way things are done. Here's an example. A relatively short fuel shortage, like petrol and diesel, for example, that increases the purchase of electric vehicles. That is an example of how a limitation, a short period of limitation, would mutate people's choices and the way that they behave. Let's not see this as a negative. It's a necessary mutation. It's an evolutionary mutation.
I love it.
I was recently in France. They've had fuel strikes. I don't know if they still do, but there'd been fuel shortages for 10 days. I didn't know because I don't watch the news. So I just arrived in France on a ferry from Sardinia. And there's just signs everywhere saying no fuel, no fuel, no fuel. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? So
sounds familiar. Sounds
yeah.
like something I would do.
Yeah, just oblivious. But also, I trust if there's something that needs to come to my attention, I'll know about it. And
100%.
and my spleen will always find what it needs to find. And it did, I managed to drive the full length of France with a full tank of fuel, and I never had a problem. But there were massive, massive queues at the 4-hour queues, particularly around Paris. And I was staying in Paris with some friends, and they have 2 electric cars, so it wasn't affecting them. But we were standing on the street talking about this situation, and and Paris already has very strict emissions. You basically can't drive diesel vehicles in Paris anymore because of the what's the word, pollution.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of people have electric cars, and because there'd been fuel shortages for 2 weeks, there was hardly any petrol vehicles on the road. It was quiet and clean.
Oh, wow.
And it was like being in a big city with minimal, smelly, noisy. It was like, I see how this is a good thing. I'm sure people are getting annoyed at the fuel shortages, but I can see where this would lead, and it would lead to cleaner, quieter cities. I personally hate living in cities because of the amount of traffic noise and pollution. It stinks. And it feels vibrationally horrible. But I was like, if this is what cities are going to be like in 10 years' time, then,
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. And pick me, because I've got one that I've noticed that's really cool. From the limitation, what I've noticed? Everyone, well, not everyone, but so many people I know are all of a sudden growing veggies, because people are really concerned that we're going to have this shortage, and that is absolutely so incredibly powerful on so many levels, because not only are we creating our own food, that means that we're doing it on a small scale. Most of us are going to be doing it in a more biodiverse way. We might even be conscious of organic soils. We're basically healing soil. If we're healing the soil, we're healing the atmosphere. I love it. It's so exciting. It's so
I'm
exciting.
glad you picked up on this, Emma, because this was exactly where I was going with this. Every time we get a limitation, it is forcing us to evolve.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. Fine, fuel shortages equals electric cars. What about an electrical outage? What if you don't have solar panels on your house? Where are you going to get your electric from for all your electric stuff? So maybe more people will be inspired to install solar panels and start generating their own energy.
Yeah.
Same, 100%, like the food thing. I mean, if you haven't already planted fruit trees and fruit bushes, do it now.
Yeah.
They take a few years to come to maturity, so do it now. I've just ordered fairly expensive but very good water purifier, because
Which one?
Oh, we'll talk later. It's coming today. I'm excited.
Because I'm going through this whole process, and anyway, this is a big conversation.
Yeah. I've gone for a gravity-fed one because I didn't want to be reliant on any power whatsoever. That's why I didn't want to put in a reverse osmosis one in. But anyway, so the point is, I was like, okay, let's extrapolate this out. Basic necessities: energy, heat, water, food. I don't think it's the worst. I'm not being disaster thinking here. I just think it is very comforting when the governments aren't functioning the way they used to. And it starts at the top, but eventually it trickles down. I mean, it's happening in Northern Ireland at the moment. Their government's not really functioning, and it's affecting the medical, because anyone that works for the government in any capacity, whether it's for the medical services or the council, or if there's a mess at the top, eventually the people who are trying to do their jobs day to day can't really do their jobs because there's just backlogs all over the place. So becoming more independent, self-sustained, tribal, just taking care of anything that you have within you, the power to take care of, so that if there's a major outage in your area, you have a bit of backup.
Yeah.
even if it's just one of those little portable solar panels that you can just hang up and charge your devices off.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like that's really what I feel the urge at the moment, is just to make sure that we have basic necessities taken care of independently of
yeah, I love that. But I
source.
also just want to just take a step back and have a look at this metaphorically, because this is all about us taking back our power. It's literally taking back our power, taking back responsibility, stopping going, well, someone else has got to work this out for me, you know, like the supermarkets have got to work this out for me. Someone else has got to work this out for me. That we don't need to wait for someone else to work this out, you know. It goes back to the story I've told a lot on the podcast, that all the floods that we experienced. And, you know, you talk about dysfunction in governments, like our government it didn't turn up. It just didn't turn up. Like we literally, they had dead bodies floating in the streets. No one showed up. So what happened? The people happened, you know, and I think that this is metaphorically, this is what we're talking about. It's where, you know, where we are actually taking our power back. And all the movies tell us that we strap a gun to our back and we go and start fighting people. And it's a bullshit. It's total bullshit. It's like exactly going back to what you said. What are our fundamental needs? Oh, I can take that. We can take care. We can grow veggies. Oh, we've got solar power. We can take back our power. And if we don't have what we need, then we just got to get curious. We've got to get curious, and we've got to connect with those people in our world, in our community, and we can take care of these things, you know, and even like free energy. Free energy is just around the corner. Like maybe that this is the time. Like it's not that it doesn't exist. It exists. People already know. I mean, for goodness sake, Nikola Tesla had already worked it out. He had blueprints. It was all done. It's just that he mysteriously died the day he was going to go to Congress and present it. Oh, what a surprise. So these things exist. And I think that this is what I'm excited about, is that if we stop listening to the fear stories of how this is bad and we flip it and go, okay, well, if this is all in us moving towards a new paradigm that is about individualistic power, empowerment, and it doesn't mean that we're taking anything from anyone else. It's in fact empowering ourselves. So we have so much more to give because we're not outsourcing our power. We're actually like, hey, how well, look what we've got. We don't need to be heavily governed and rule abiders and all of that stuff. We actually have all of those, all of that within us. So I think it's such a fucking exciting time. It isn't going to be comfortable. Like I totally agree with that. I totally understand that is the case. But yeah, I think it's exciting. You know, like far out. I've been half asleep for so much of the podcast. And woof, my sacral just woken up.
Yeah, I think it's like it's gorgeous to feel self-sufficient.
I agree.
It feels good. There's nothing better than eating food you grew yourself. Nothing. So
it just tastes different. And maybe it doesn't, but to your body it does, you know, because especially as a generator or manifesting the satisfaction. Oh my God, the satisfaction. I love it.
Yeah. And it's like, just like I yesterday went out and took cuttings off the blackcurrant bushes, and I'm going to root them, and then I'm going to plant we've got a piece of common land out the back where people walk their dogs. I'm just going to go and plant loads of blackcurrant bushes out there so that in 2 or 3 years' time, the whole community has a supply of blackcurrants if they want them. You know, it doesn't take much. It's totally free to me. It just takes a few minutes of my time. So
I love it.
Yeah, I think we're getting an inkling as to what Pluto's doing, why these limitations are necessary, and how they're going to transform the world.
Well, you know what it is? It's pushing people and more people into a place where they can no longer ignore that they have the power that lies within them. You know, they're being pushed to a point that they have to realize that there are things that they can do. There are choices that they can make that are different. And I think that's really exciting.
Me too.
Awesome.
Good.
I was going to say, I think that's it. I think that's it.
That is exactly it. We're done.
Awesome. Well, on that clunky but powerful ending. I want to say a huge thank you to you, of course, Jen. It's so beautiful to do this with you each month, and thank you so much for carrying me tonight. Appreciate it.
No worries, mate.
Love it. And thank you everyone for listening and all of your support. And I just want to say thank you for being you. All of you that do listen to this particular episode each month, but the entire podcast, you are absolutely on this mission with all of us to take back our power and responsibility and, not strap guns to our back, but, plant vegetables and put, water distillation or water filters in and do all of the right things for not only ourselves, but, look, when we empower ourselves and look after ourselves, by default, we're helping the planet. You see, this is how it works, instead of giving our power away to these governments that really they're floundering. And that's not a judgment. It's just a reality right now. It just is. So, let's help ourselves, help each other, and do our piece for the planet. So thanks, everyone. I was another little extra rant. So if you've ever wondered what it sounds like when a defined throat keeps talking after it's done, this is an example of that. So I love you all. Thanks, Jen. And I look forward to having you all on the next podcast.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.